So let's say we wanted to make a game that had a lot of staircases in it, for example. And we used our process for building a staircase, which is to duplicate, snap to grid, duplicate, snap to grid. And now we want to group these together so we can just duplicate them and make a bunch of staircases in a row, for example. What I would do is create an empty object, which basically means a game object that has nothing in it. As you can see, it's actually called just game object. I'm going to rename it stairs, if I can type properly. I'm going to move it to the origin. And now I'm just going to select all of these, select the first one, shift and click at the last one to get all of them, and drag them into here, into stairs. Now they're all together in a group. I can move them around. I can also duplicate them, the entire group. Move it over here, duplicate, move over here. Now we have multiple stairs. This is cool. But what if you wanted to change something about this? Like say we want to make these stairs wider. But I want all the stairs to be wider, and I don't want to have to go and duplicate these again to make them wider. Well, Unity has something really cool called Prefabs, which basically make this really easy to do. So what we're going to do is going to create a prefab in our project. We'll call it stairs. And we're just going to drag this on the prefab. And now it's a prefab. That's easy, right? So you can just drag this in, and now we have another prefab instance, as it's called. So we can just drag in as many stairs as we want. And now if we wanted to change one of them, so we go in here and we scale all these up. All we need to do is hit this apply button over here under the prefab section. Hit that, and all the stairs change. You have to be really careful with this thing because you could do something really bad and apply it everywhere. But the cool thing is that these are still linked. So they'll automatically update, so if you need to fix all of them, you can just make your changes and they'll all be fixed. So that's incredibly useful. That's also how we do stuff like, say for example, spawning bullets. So let's do a little example with that. Say we wanted to make a game where we shoot stuff from our camera. Let's just create an object here. Let's make a cube. And we'll call it a bullet. And we're going to attach some stuff to it. We're going to make it a physical object. And all we did to do that was go component physics rigid body. So, got our bullet. Now we're going to make it into a prefab. And remember how to do that. We create a new prefab. We name it here. Call it bullet. Drag our bullet into there. Now it's linked. Now we don't need this anymore because all the prefab data is in the project now. So we're just going to delete that. Now we're going to add a new component. We already have Bob, which is our movement script, and now we're going to create a new component called shoot. I'm going to rename Bob, and you can actually rename scripts whenever you want, which is one of the cool things about Unity. The other cool thing is you can keep these components separate. You can have a component that's just about moving, and all the code for moving is in there, and another one that's just about shooting. That's a really nice way to keep the code organized. So shoot. Now what we're going to do is create a variable, and this variable is going to be a link to the prefab that we want. So we'll call it bullet prefab. Actually, let's call it prefab bullet. And it's going to be of type transform. Input that get button down jump. I'm going to use jump because it's bound to space by default. So now we're going to use a function called Instantiate, which basically just creates an instance of a prefab. It takes the code, the data that was made to create the prefab, and runs it so that we can have an instance of it to play with. So the name of the prefab, the variable that we're going to use to create it, the position that we want to create, which is going to be our own position, and a rotation, and basically all this means is we just want a default rotation. Now we're going to create a new variable to hold the instance of this. So instance bullet. Now we're going to add, let's just see what this does first actually. Run in here, we're going to attach this to our camera, the shoot script, boom, there we go. It doesn't have a prefab linked yet. So if we run this, and we hit space, we're going to get an error. And errors in Unity are going to show up at the bottom here. And you can actually double click this and it will warp you to the point in the script where the error happens. So we can see, okay, there's a problem in that line. And it says here that the prefab you want to instantiate is null. So that means that this was not defined. And we named our variable prefab bullet, which makes it very helpful. So now we know it was intended to be a prefab. So we just need to link something to this. And there's a few different ways to link stuff. You could just drag from here to here the bullet prefab. Or you could just hit this and find the prefab here. This is very helpful. It tells you that this is in the assets folder and this is in the scene. So that's another easy way to do it. We start, and now if we hit the jump button, you'll see that a cube appears in the scene and just falls. Let's jump to our camera here. You see that, yeah, we're just keep hitting this and spawn as many boxes as we want. And they're all reacting to physics. All we had to do is add that physics object called rigid body. But we don't want to do that. We want to actually have the thing shoot forward. So we're going to use a function called add force. And we're going to add it to the rigid body component because that's what controls the physics. Add force, transform by forward. Remember that that gives us our forward-looking direction. And we're going to multiply this by a value, let's call it shoot force. And we'll make a new variable for that. I'm going to set that to something that isn't 0, so 10. Let's see what this does. Let's try upping this force a bit. We need way more force. That's too much force. There we go. So I can shoot stuff, and if we rotate the view, it still goes forward. And it'll hit stuff and react physically with it. So now we can actually edit the scene while the game is still running if we want to play around with, say, we just wanted to try adding a floor, which might just be fun to do. Something where these blocks can land. And this is where Unity becomes really fun for just jamming, just going with a creative flow and seeing what happens. Because you can just start creating stuff and playing around with it in real time. That's kind of a bit more interesting to see these things pile up. And you can see in the scene we have all these instances of our bullet prefab that are still there. We probably eventually want to write a script that makes them clean themselves up. Now we're just going to save the scene. We're just going to call it scene. And it appears in here. And you can have multiple scenes. You can duplicate scenes. You can make a scene here where the stairs are really fat. Save it. Go to this other scene where the stairs aren't fat. And that's really useful for testing stuff too, because you can create multiple different scenes that test out different gameplay values, different balancing things. Yeah. So that's kind of just some of the basics of Unity. I hope this was useful, even though it was kind of scatterbrained. And if you have any ideas about other things that you'd want to learn about, let me know, and I'll try to do some more videos. Thanks for listening.